one of the year. I'm going to be talking to you guys about a bunch of what's going to be going on this year with this, as well as the addition of the square pair guys and the Wednesday night thing we're going to be doing. So we're going to be doing that stuff on Wednesdays. See my cat in the background, kids' toys. This is me and my family's new apartment in Golden, Colorado. So that's awesome. And one of the big things that's changing this year is that I'm going to be adding in the square pair guys. And by doing that, we're going to be doing it on Wednesdays, and hopefully we're going to find a venue to do it at, which is going to be cool. But if we don't, we're going to have it at one of our homes or something like that. But we're going to be, three of us are going to be making separate picks, separate takes on the NFL, and probably some other sports in there. And my brother is going to join in, and he's going to give his opinions on the UFC, and he really does do well with UFC. So that's all going to be part of it. But so we're going to be going live on Wednesdays. We're going to be having picks, and we're going to be showing the bankrolls. So we figured out where everyone's can start as a bankroll, and we're going to be using online gambling sites that we can use here in Colorado. So hey, what's up, Press? What's up, Mr. Patel? So we're going to be doing those things, and we're going to be showing them live so you guys can keep up with us betting, so we're not just putting out opinions that are, just opinions. We're actually going to have money on the games, and it's not going to be a ton at first, so we're going to build it up, and I'm also going to be showing the computer model. So kind of the idea of what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a large a group of things, and we're going to break it down into a show. So like we're going to have a pick segment. We're going to have like kind of like an NFL segment based upon like what NFL news stuff. We're going to have a fantasy football segment, and it's all going to be in the same live show, but we're going to be doing some of the other things. Also, some subscribers have talked about wanting to join a fantasy league with us. So fantasy leagues don't work really well with over 10 people in them, so we're going to limit it to 10 people. And so that will leave 7 spots. And what I plan on doing to choose the subscribers that want to play in those other 7 spots is I plan on holding some kind of contest. Me and the square pair guys are going to get together. We're going to figure out what kind of contest that would take to figure it out. Obviously, because we can't play more than that. It just really waters down the teams if you have more than that. There's no bench play and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that was what some subscribers said. So we'll do that. That'll all be part of it. We'll have a draft that I'll try to stream live if I can. I'll have to get with some of the other guys that understand those streaming things. But yeah, so we'll get that together. But so some of the big things that I wanted to talk about based upon this football season is so as the football picks go, we're going to be doing them on Wednesday. So this is something I want to put out there is, guys, if we tell you something's going to happen on Monday Night Football on Wednesday or Sunday Night Football on Wednesday, there's obviously a lot of changes that could happen between then and then. And we're going to essentially take that, and hopefully on Saturdays, on Sunday mornings, if there's changes, I can relate the changes. If we're going to lay a game off, I can relate the changes through live posts, through different things, and I'm going to do my best to do those things, because obviously if you bet on a team and then their starting quarterback breaks his leg in the shower, it's probably not a great bet anymore. And so those are the things that we're going to be uh, we're going to be implementing all that stuff. And like I said, it's going to be a 3-person show, me and the Square Pair guys, and my brother, when he decides he wants to come and give us UFC stuff as well. And we're just going to have a lot of fun with it, and we're going to show the bets, like I said. So you're going to get to see everything we're doing, everything we're saying, everything we're playing, and we're going to keep up with it. So it's going to be like a live total. It's almost going to be like a competition between me and those guys, and them, to see who can win the most. And obviously, you know, if we have to rebuy, I'm sure we'll allow rebuys, but uh, hopefully we won't, and hopefully it's just going to go good. There's a ton of changes in the NFL this year. Number one, there's only 3 preseason games and there's 17 regular season games. So that changes a lot of things, especially concerning futures and concerning playoff seeding. They added that extra playoff team last year and stuff, and it's just, one team has an extra away game. One side has an extra away game, and one side has an extra home game this year. I mean, there's just a ton of changes. This is the post-COVID year. We're still probably going to run into some COVID issues this year, I would say. Because obviously if someone tests positive for it, they're going to kick them out. They're going to make it to where, they can't play, because that's how it works. So, but that's kind of what's going to go on this year. And Brady's going to go back to back. They have a good team. There's no doubt about that. They're good. Back to back's hard to do. I think Brady's the last guy to do it, right? He's the last guy to go back to back. So if anyone does it, I guess it would be him. But I have my doubts. It's very difficult to do that. There's just by injuries alone can derail it. I mean, I don't think he would have went back to back last year if injuries didn't derail the Chiefs. 2 of their starting linemen got knocked out. So, yes, I'm having a old beer here. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun year, a really fun year. It's going to be different than I've ever done, because I've never really had help with it. This will be the first time I've ever really had help. And we're going to see. It's going to be fun. And these guys are great. You guys know the Square Pair guys. If you don't know, go subscribe to their channel. Check them out. They're very interesting. They're fun. They're fun guys to be around. So they bring a lot of energy to everything, which is going to be really cool for this. And they're definitely different. Their fan base, their fandom is different. We had, one of them's a Brady fan, but a Chicago Bears fan. And then the other guy, he's a Broncos fan like myself. But so, I mean, there's going to be a lot of good back and forth, and I'm sure a lot of side bets between us, and it's just going to be a really fun time. And we want to be more interactive with the subscribers, and so that's why we're going to do the Fantasy Football League, and we're going to try to get this to be nice. That's really cool. We're going to try to get our idea, and we're going to try to push it through at a local place here in town, hopefully a sports bar, so we can go live from a sports bar. And I'm going to be working on that, trying to get us a place to do it on Wednesdays, live at a place. So if you are in town, you could just come see us in live show on Wednesday, and hopefully that takes off, and hopefully it turns into something real, and we can have a lot of fun with it, and people can come hang out, and when we make a losing pick, they can come threaten us and be mean to us and all that good stuff, because that's what people like to do when they lose their money. So, but anyway, it's okay. I don't have no issue with it. I do pretty well. So, but anyway, so again, this is a lot of what we're going to be doing, and it's going to be fun. Guys, I'm telling you, it's going to be fun. These guys are great. And I'm thinking if we can't get into a sports bar, then we'll do something like Whiskey of the Week or something like that, where one of us brings a bottle and then we pull it out and see what it is. And I know you will, man. I know you will. Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone that's watching. 9 watching, 8 watching. I know the NFL stuff isn't as popular because this is essentially a craps channel it's built on. But guys, my NFL stuff is as transparent as it comes. You know what computer model I use. I put it all on my website. I put my picks out there live and then put them on my website. So, you know, right or wrong, it is what it is. So, I mean, guys, I do well enough to make money, and there's no doubt about that. So, just tune in, check it out. I got some more opinions on this stuff now. And guys, these guys are sports savvy. They know their stuff. They definitely they're not they're not along for the ride. They have their own opinions, and they're solid, really good opinions. They definitely know what they're talking about. So we're going to definitely have a ton of fun, as well as win some money. And like I said, yeah, we could do stuff like that. So one of the things I would like to have a table, like for our podcast, YouTube cast, whatever you want to call it, table, as a craps table. I think it would be cool to have it a craps table, just with no walls. It would be a really fun thing to do. But anyway, so one of the other things I wanted to talk about is the post I made today. So this is a little different, and if you guys read my post about, is it more impressive to have a 2,000-yard rusher or a 50 touchdown passer? So this is something else I'm going to do, and this is going to be individual. Every week I'm going to go live, and I'm going to talk about something in NFL or in the NFL history, and I do my research on this stuff before I talk about it, so I do know what I'm talking about when I say it. So when you look at these two statistics, okay, so these are kind of like Mount Rushmore statistics for these two positions, right? All the guys that fall into this were pretty great players. None of them were like mediocre, all right? Even on the running back side, the most mediocre player out of that group, I guess, would be Chris Johnson, the Tennessee Titans 2,000-yard rusher, because that was like his best year. And then after that, you know, and they never won a Super Bowl. So that's a big issue there, kind of with him. But the rest of those guys, I know Derrick Henry hasn't won a Super Bowl, but Derrick Henry is brand new in his career, and he's already done a 2,000-yard season. And I know Adrian Peterson never won a Super Bowl, but he had an amazing career. All right, so he had 2 chances, and he almost had a chance to break the all-time record. So the rest of those guys, you know. But anyway, so the reason I brought this up, okay, so because when you're deciding, yeah, a lot of Alabama guys, right? When you're deciding who the best is, right? A lot of times it comes down to their trophy case, right? So Tom Brady's considered the best because his trophy case, right? Because he has all the titles, right? But I think if you asked like NFL people who they would pick first, I don't think they would say Tom Brady. And the reason I'm saying this is because his trophy case outside of the Super Bowl wins, which is a team trophy, his trophy case as a quarterback is mediocre. It's not like over the top great. You know, he didn't have a bunch of MVPs. He didn't have a bunch of Super Bowl MVPs and stuff like that, where he was like the dominant force. He has it to 50 touchdown season, which is puts him on that Mount Rushmore there. But you know, he didn't have a whole bunch of 40 touchdown seasons, and so I'm not hating on Tom Brady. What I'm saying is that this is where you start splitting hairs, and there's a thing that I think is in sports, and there's a best player ever and a greatest player ever. Okay, so at the quarterback position, Tom Brady's the greatest player ever, right? He's accomplished the most. overall. He has all the titles. He does have MVPs. He does have Super Bowl MVPs, regular season stuff like that. 50 touchdowns. Overall, he's accomplished enough to be the greatest because of the Super Bowl wins. But as far as best goes, like the best quarterback ever, I don't think he's that. I don't think he's it. Because if you look at his Super Bowls, every year, he had a top 10 defense. I feel like if you give these other guys top 10, them same defenses, they win the same amount of Super Bowls or more. And I know what I'm talking about here is basically all conjecture, because obviously we can't go back and look at it and do it and replay the games. But I feel like the situation fell into his lap. He always had a good defense. Okay, but he wasn't that at first, and he was still winning Super Bowls because of the team. He grew into that. He wasn't that at first. In fact, the first Super Bowl, if the Rams don't throw a pick six, they don't lose. So, and I mean, the kind of the same thing in the Seattle Super Bowl. They're on the goal line, he throws an interception. I mean, but then you can flip it over and say, well, the Giants Super Bowls he shouldn't have lost, or the Philly Super Bowl he shouldn't have lost. What I'm getting at, guys, is that there's a difference between best and greatest. And I feel the same way, like in the NBA, in baseball, in all these things, there's a difference between best and greatest. Tom Brady is the greatest NFL player ever because he has all these championships, right? He has the one trophy that matters the most, and he has the most of them, right? So he's the greatest player ever. Is he the best quarterback ever? I don't think so. I don't think he's the best quarterback ever. In fact, I think the best quarterback ever is playing right now, and he just doesn't have enough years under his belt to be considered that. Now, he lost to Tom Brady in a Super Bowl, so he'll never be considered the greatest, even if he wins 15 Super Bowls. Because he lost to Tom Brady head up, he'll never be considered the greatest. So, because, for example, here's another example, okay? Back in the late 80s and early 90s and stuff, Joe Montana was considered not only the greatest quarterback ever, but also the best quarterback ever, right? But at that same time, okay, so you're talking about Mahomes there. Mahomes has accomplished more in the short term of his career than any other player in NFL history. And no matter what position you pick or anything, he's got a Super Bowl MVP, and a league MVP, and he's only started 3 seasons. So he's got a 50 touchdown season. So all the Mount Rushmore things that you have to be there, he's already done it. And so he still has 15 years left in his career. He's on a level, on a trajectory that no other player's ever been on. The only other player that was kind of close to this was Peyton Manning early on. When they put that team together, he was just throwing touchdowns left and right. And but no one else has ever been close to this, what he's done in such a short period. Russell Wilson had a flash of it because their defense was so good, but he wasn't leading the team to victories then. The defense was. Now, obviously, the script is flipped up there in Seattle, and it's all Russell Wilson. But just what I'm getting at here is there's a difference between best and greatest, and I think we're going to see it. I like Taysom Hill. He's a very tough kid, and he really does. That's a Big Daddy. That's a very negative thing to say. So you're saying Mahomes will never hold up? Mahomes doesn't run that much or anything. He's a pocket passer predominantly. I mean, Okay, so you can say the same thing for Brady. Brady has always had a great defense around him. The year that he threw 50 touchdown passes, he had arguably the best offense ever with Randy Moss and stuff. So every time Brady's been good, except for one time. Ah, there's my all rigged crew. All rigged, that's right. Uh, every time Brady's been great, he had a great defense. Guys, if you look at the first three Super Bowls, look at that defense. See how many gold jackets are on that defense. See how many busts are going to be in Canton, right? It was no joke. The one year they could easily be considered the greatest defense ever. So, and then the second group around him was the Vince Wilfork group. They were great. And this third group now has the secondary that's great. So he's always had a great defense around him. National Fixed League. And even at Tampa Bay, he went into a situation where he had the most offensive weapons he's ever had, total, not necessarily the best, but the most, and then a great defense. So he's never really played without a great defense. And I think that has translated into a ton of wins because Super Bowl wins are a team trophy. They're not a player trophy. So, but anyways, guys, these are my opinions. So, and I have said repeatedly that Tom Brady is the greatest player ever in NFL history. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, when you know what you got. I mean, Peyton Manning did it in Denver. Okay, so he's had Edelman and Wes Welker, and he had Randy Moss, and he had when Aaron Hernandez, before he went crazy, he had him, and they were all great weapons, right? Back in the early years, he had Corey Dillon running the football. I mean, it's not like he's been devoid of weapons, right? And he had Ben Watson at tight end when Ben Watson was a monster, right? So it's not like he was just didn't have weapons, guys. He had weapons. Now, there are a few of them other years, like where he made Deion Branch a household name and stuff like that. He's definitely made some players. And that's one thing I'll say. Brady doesn't get credit for the players that he's made. Whereas like Peyton Manning gets credit for making receivers. Brady doesn't ever really get credit for it, and he should. He definitely should because he's made a lot of those guys, you know? But I mean, overall, for what Tom Brady worked with and the production he got out of him, there's no doubt that he's amazing. There's no doubt because he didn't have your ready-made type guys until Tampa Bay here. You know, these guys were already established players. But sure, I mean, besides getting Randy Moss and you know, stuff like that, the few instances where they did get somebody for him, absolutely, he made players, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. I totally agree with that. So, but, I mean, he made Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan's not great. He made Chris Hogan what he was for that 10 seconds. But it's still the special teams. Guys, I know you guys probably know this stuff, but in a lot of those Super Bowl runs, the special teams came up huge. Tom Brady didn't have anything to do with that. That was all those players. You know, special teams would block a punt or block a field goal or run a kickback. I mean, the special teams for the Patriots all those years were just lights out. They were just great. They weren't Tom Brady doing anything there. And that's what I'm getting at is that best and greatest is different. So, do I think he's the greatest? Yeah, absolutely. He's the greatest football player ever. He's not even just the greatest quarterback. He's the greatest football player ever. He has all the titles. So, I mean, there's no arguing that. But he's not the best quarterback ever, in my opinion. But so, that again, that's you know, that's splitting hairs because sure, McDaniels has definitely created some players. And the Patriot way, so they create these players, they create this image of this player, and then they trade them off for draft picks. The Patriot way is brilliant in the NFL. So before they pay guys, they trade them off for draft picks. And they just keep retooling that defense and they put it around Brady. And I mean, it was a great play, great. And don't get me wrong, guys, Brady had to get it done. But let's think about something. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back, right? Let's go back to the beginning of Brady's Patriot career. If Drew Bledsoe doesn't go down, how many Super Bowls does Brady have? He doesn't have the first one because Bledsoe would have had that. Probably the second or the third either, because they weren't going to get rid of him after winning a Super Bowl. And let's not act like the Patriots weren't already pretty good. They had just went to the Super Bowl a few years before and lost with Bledsoe. They lost to the Packers in the 90s, just a few years before the Brady arrival. So does Brady even become a Patriot if Bledsoe don't go down? I mean, does he get traded off? I don't know. I know they liked him. I know they did really like him when he first got there, and he was pushing for the job anyway. But they go and they win, and it's Bledsoe. They're not going to bench him the next year. So, I mean, I don't know. I think he got very lucky. Got very lucky that he... I would definitely agree with Dan Marino as the best quarterback to never win a Super Bowl. I totally 100% agree with that. I totally agree with that, Quack Shooter. I totally agree with that. And Brady's done everything right. You know, Brady got benched at Michigan. Brady got benched. He got benched in his senior year at Michigan for a freshman. You like the new office? Thanks, Larry. But yeah, so, you know, and let's talk about some other things since we're on this big Brady conversation. Okay, so a couple of the things that I don't care about. I don't care whether he told his crew people to deflate the balls to 1 pound, because previous to that all blowing up, every quarterback, every offense brought their own footballs to the game. So every quarterback had their footballs aired up the way they wanted. It wasn't new. Brady didn't do anything different than every other quarterback did. What Brady got in trouble, Brady didn't get in trouble for telling those guys to deflate the balls. Brady got in trouble for breaking his cell phone and protecting those equipment guys. That's what he got in trouble for. So I think the NFL way overstepped their bounds there. I think that was a competition leveling. They were trying to level because the Patriots were dominating. Their style, their system was dominating, and it's just they found something. You know, that was right after a couple years after they got caught cheating. Now, when they were spying and getting other teams' plays and stuff, that's cheating. But that wasn't Brady doing that. That was the coaching staff. So, again, I don't have a ton of issues with any of that stuff. I don't really care about that because the football still got thrown, they still got caught, scores still happened. So all that, it's kind of like the home run thing. I don't care how many home run hitters juiced because the pitchers were juicing too. So if they hit it 550 feet, they hit it 550 feet. You know, don't throw it. Don't throw that pitch, you know. So I don't care about that kind of stuff. I care about what happens on the field. That's what I care about. And when I talk about sports, because that's what matters. You know, like all those guys that had home runs hit off of them that didn't use steroids, all of those guys, they remember those home runs, all right? They remember them flying over the fence. They didn't take none of them wins away. Same thing with Brady. They didn't take Brady's wins away when you stick them on your dice. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, absolutely, right? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I'm just joking. But so, anyways, but back to where this conversation all started is that what's more impressive, the 2,000 rushing yards or the 50 touchdown passes. All right, so there's been some other guys that have got close to the 50 touchdown passes, but there's been a lot of other guys that have got close to the 2,000 yards too. So I don't think that matters. So you have 8 guys that have made 2,000 yards, and you have 3 guys that have thrown 50 touchdown passes. All right, it is so much more difficult to throw 50 touchdown passes than it is to rush for 2,000 yards. All right, it's more difficult. Now, in today's NFL, maybe not. And most of those guys, no, it's only half of those guys. Half of those guys were in the post West Coast era, and half of those guys were pre West Coast era. So back when they just ran the ball all the time, a bunch of them were there. And now when they pass the ball all the time, about 4 of them were here. I believe so. So it's, now, you're right. The 14 games, that's impressive. But, okay, so a 2,000, because he needed to hold up so long, well, the quarterback not only has to throw the ball in the right spot, he has to get the play called. He has to do all these other things that the running back doesn't have to do. All the running back has to do is follow blocking, right? And guys, the guys that did it, that ran for 2,000 yards, there's 2 types, okay? So from what I've seen, there's the guys that were on bad teams and did it, like i.e. Barry Sanders, and there was guys that were on good teams and did it. So it kind of just depended. It kind of just depended on kind of what era it was in. Because believe it or not, and this is gonna bother people, and it's a little bit of a homer pick, but I think the best running back ever for the time he was in the league was Terrell Davis. I mean, Terrell Davis ran for 2,000 yards, won Super Bowls. Yeah, okay, but the quarterback does take a ton of hits. All right, he gets hit even when he doesn't have the ball. And the quarterback also has to take all the blame. Now, he does get all the credit as well. You know, he has to be able to throw the ball 60 yards. He has to be able to throw the ball on target with people in his face. I mean, questioning which position is harder, I don't think is even a question. The quarterback position is the hardest position in the NFL. And the second hardest position is the cornerback position, in my opinion. Running back is probably one of the easiest positions outside of taking punishment. Because basically everything is done for you and you just have to make the run. So again, guys, this is all just me. This is all just me talking. I mean, it's my opinions. So, but still, I think that based upon well, okay, so that quack shooter, what you said there, all the running backs that ran for 2,000 yards were a one running back system. There was not 2 running backs there. All of them. They were all 1 running back systems. So the only one that was kind of close. No, that's actually the opposite, Big Daddy. Any Joe can play running back. They show it every year. They prove it every year that off the street guys can come in there and play running back. It takes an elite NFL mind and ability to play quarterback. They do it every year where just a random guy shows up and plays running back. And now, don't get me wrong, he's played in college and all that stuff and probably small school, but and that's why running backs are so devalued, because they can pretty much get anybody to come in there and do it. As long as they got the physical skill set, they can do it. I mean, the Broncos proved it in the 90s and the early 2000s. They just kept putting guys in there because it was a system thing. All the quarterbacks, the 3 quarterbacks that have thrown for 50 touchdowns in a season, there is no denying that they're elite. There is no denying that they are the bests. All right? Because it's Brady, it's Manning, and it's Mahomes. Right? And I feel like you can throw Lamar Jackson into this because between passes and rushes, he also made it. So I feel like there's a fourth, but it's not passing only. So if it's not, so I feel like Lamar Jackson fits into this too, but it's not only passing. So it is a little different, but I feel like he fits right into this. Now there's a couple other guys that got to 48 and stuff. Peyton Manning got to 48 or 49, and he also had a 50 season. So Aaron Rodgers has got right to the doorstep. But there's also been a bunch of running backs that have got to 18 and 1900 yards. I love Mike Allston myself. But anyways, so what I'm saying is that there's a reason that there's only 3 that have done it, and there's a reason that there's 8 running backs that have done it. There was just a 2,000-yard rusher last year or the year before, Googs. It just happened. It was Derrick Henry. He just did it. I believe he'll do it again. I believe Derrick Henry will do it a second time. I don't know if it'll be this year, but he's going to do it again. And the reason is because he's that one back style that's reliable, that is going to take over games and run for 160 yards on a consistent basis. I do think there's a few other guys that have a chance. I mean, there's lots of QBs now that run the ball. Lots of QBs run. It's turning into a thing. It's actually kind of the new fad in the NFL again. And in fact, I can just start naming off QBs that run for 70, 80 yards a game pretty consistently. And we had a few more enter the league this year. So, I mean, it's pretty common anymore. But none of those guys besides Lamar Jackson are up in that Mount Rushmore area. Lamar Jackson, he had a total of 50 plus touchdowns in a season. It's amazing. Why does it have to be halfback? I mean, it's still a quarterback. He's still running the football. I mean, still out of the backfield. He's not catching a pass or something. I'm not really understanding where your argument's coming from here, because I'm talking about the guys that run the ball. Look, I'm an Arkansas fan. I watched Darren McFadden do everything one year, everything for us. Now, he had 2 other great running backs with him. But he would throw passes, he would catch passes, he would run the ball. And that was in college. And it was fun. Yeah, he did. It was cool to watch. But, I mean, as far as just getting the ball and running it as a quarterback, that's not their position. That's the running back's position. And the running back really can't do anything without the quarterback anyway. Even if they're just doing a direct snap to him, it's still a line call by the center. The center's still calling out the line calls and the blocking schemes that the quarterback would normally do. I mean, the running back it's kind of like playing weak side linebacker. You know, you're basically required to do one group of things and that's it. I mean, I don't think that the running back position is anywhere near the quarterback position, nor has it ever been. Not since modern football, not since the forward pass. They do tend to have shorter careers. But, I mean, is that true? Because there's a lot of quarterbacks that have short careers that aren't running quarterbacks too. They're just not good enough, you know. Running backs have one of the shortest careers overall in the NFL, but it's because there's always the next guy coming up that's better than you. It's not necessarily because they're hurt. It's because there's always the next guy that's better. Where the quarterback, the elite are the elite. It's very few and far between. You know, but and like I think we have some guys that just recently got in the league, you know. Well, I mean, the statistics don't show that. The statistics don't show that. There's 8 players that have ran for 2,000 yards, and there's 3 that have thrown for 50 touchdowns. So the statistics totally disagree with you. It's more than 2 to 1. Yeah, Randall Cunningham was good. Really good. Michael Vick was amazing too, but you know, Michael Vick's career got derailed by a couple things. He broke his leg one time, and then he went to prison. I mean, when Michael Vick was on top of the world, he was in the NFC Championship game against Brett Favre with a mediocre Atlanta team. It was Michael Vick and the other guys. They had a few players on that team, but it was Michael Vick and the other guys. And he was just taking them. He had them on his back the whole way. I mean, he was amazing to watch. Probably, Michael Vick was probably my favorite player ever in the NFL to watch. And he had just such a cannon. So when the play did break down and someone broke free, he could throw it to him. He could throw the ball 70 yards. I mean, it was crazy. But I love these kind of conversations because, guys, I really do know my stuff. And so when I'm talking about this, I've done some research and I've formed an opinion. So I love it when I get your guys, because a lot of you guys are much older than me. And you guys saw a different NFL that I never got to see. I like Romo. You know, Romo held most of the Cowboy records when he retired. Romo was a great quarterback. Never bet against Brady in the Super Bowl. That's very true. I mean, you'd be 70%. So, you know what's funny? Okay, so let's talk about last year on my Super Bowl stuff. So, if you guys remember when the Super Bowl 2 weeks before my first videos, I was on the Tampa Bay side because of the 3.5 points, right? So 3.5 points, and I was like, oh yeah, you got to take Tampa Bay here because of the points. But then as the first week went on and I learned more information and I did my computer model. Oh, okay, so we're talking about something different there, okay. So all that. Awesome, thank you, Magic Aces. That's really cool. But so what? So last year, I tell everyone first week of the Super Bowl stuff. I'm like, get on Tampa Bay, get on Tampa Bay, get on Tampa Bay. As the week goes on, I start changing my mind. I'm like, no, get on Kansas City. And I just didn't put enough emphasis on those linemen being out. I thought Andy Reid would have a better plan. And it just didn't materialize. I mean, the Tampa Bay defense came to play, and they took Tyreek Hill out of the game. And, you know, it wasn't that Mahomes didn't try. I mean, he was diving, throwing balls off people's chests, off their face masks for touchdowns. His team just didn't show up for him. And Brady showed up and did Brady's thing. He threw the ball to old reliable Gronkowski. Brady did what Brady does. He didn't mess up. And the defense showed up, and I mean, they dominated. There's no doubt about it. They dominated that game. And so, yeah, hats off to them. But it's just funny how having 2 weeks to study one game can just mess your whole opinion of it up. And that's kind of what happened to me last year on that. So, but yeah, because I actually had a ton of it wrong. I think I only got the Travis Kelce stuff right. Other than that, I think I had everything else wrong. I can't remember exactly. But see, I had made a bet on Kansas City in August that year that they'd win the Super Bowl again. And so I had that ticket as well. Yeah, he's a winner, no doubt. He is clutch in the spotlight. He has had some good things happen to him in the Super Bowls. He's had some good things happen to him in the Super Bowls. Obviously, Atlanta's collapse in the second half. Now, but that's the only reason it looked like a collapse is because Brady went out and started making plays. So that's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other there. Because if they come out flat in the second half, they still lose. But they didn't. They came out and made big plays. Edelman made that miracle catch. It was a great comeback. The Giants Super Bowls were tricky. Okay, so in neither case were the Giants the better team. I don't think anyone would ever say they were the better team. They were just better that day. And Spagnuolo, that was one of the reasons why I thought the Chiefs were going to win last year too, with Spagnuolo as a D coordinator. And I was like, every time in these Super Bowls, he's done well against Brady when he was with the Giants. Well, Spagnuolo had them horses on that D line there, and he just turned them loose on Brady, and they just had a good plan in those games. Because those were both low-scoring games. It wasn't like Eli Manning was lighting up the world or something, winning by 21 or anything. They were close games, and in both games, Eli Manning had to have some pretty amazing plays happen to get them wins. Now, the Eagles lost. The Eagles just came to play. That day they came to play. Brady did too. Brady threw for 500 yards in that game. In that Eagles Super Bowl, Brady threw for 500 yards and lost. So think about that. That's craziness, right? How do you throw for 500 yards and lose? So, but Philly made big plays when it mattered. And that's how they got it done. The Seattle Super Bowl, Seattle gave that Super Bowl to New England. They were on the goal line with one of the best goal line running backs ever. He doesn't get the football. I mean, I know it was a Russell Wilson read, and I love Russell Wilson. And Butler just made a great play on it. But, I mean, come on, man. So that was kind of a gift. But, I mean, overall, you got to have that stuff happen. The ball's got to bounce your way sometimes. You're not always just going to get it's not always going to be dominating performances. Sometimes you got to get, it's got to bounce your way. You can say the same thing for, I don't know. Now, I saw Cam Newton look pretty crisp today, and his arm looks like it's back. So I don't know. I was on board with that too, Waylon, that Mac Jones would kind of take over, but I don't know. It looks like, to me, from what I saw today in their game, that Cam Newton's the man, and Mac Jones is still in the second chair. So Googs, in that game, the call was to beast mode. Pete Carroll's come out and said that, and Russell Wilson checked it at the line to the slant. But that was like second down or whatever. They had more chances. That was a bad play, man. It was just a bad play by Russell Wilson. Cost him a Super Bowl probably. A better play would have been him to just run it, than to try to throw it. You're throwing it in the end zone. It's tight. Let Russell cook, though. You got to. I totally agree with that, man. Russell Wilson's one of the best players in the NFL. You got to let him have the reins. You saw when they got conservative last year and took it away from him a little bit, they weren't as good. When he was just unleashing everything, they were good. They were great. But as they pulled the reins back in a little bit, they got worse. Another guy, we're going to see Dak Prescott healthy this year, guys. I know people don't remember, but Dak Prescott was off to a pretty good start last year, even though they weren't winning necessarily. Statistically, he was really good, and the year before he was good. So, I would venture to say that the Cowboys are going to score a lot of points this year. I don't know if they're going to score. I don't know if they're going to win a lot of games, but they're definitely going to score a lot. Their offense is loaded, and now they get their quarterback back. They're going to be tough. They're going to be hard out. That division definitely helps them. I do think the Giants made a huge step this year in that division as well. They got Galladay. Russell is Mahomes' ceiling. I think that Mahomes is already better than Russell Wilson. They have this. I think Mahomes is already better than him. It's actually not even close. I think that Mahomes is the best in the league right now, and then there's a couple guys that are kind of close to him, and then there's a bunch of guys that are not even close. Just what the guy does. I mean, the arm talent, the improvisation, just everything about Mahomes. Mahomes is like if you're going to create a quarterback in the lab, is what you create. He runs just enough, but he has a killer arm. He's a good leader. Yeah, he's always going to be in the league for MVP. I mean, because he's Russell Wilson. But, I mean, it's hard MVP right now. He's got some really, really tough talent right there. But back to the Giants, man. The Giants are going to get Barkley back. They got Galladay in the offseason. The Daniel Jones kid was coming along at the end of the year. And, man, they're going to be tough. The Giants are going to be tricky for the NFC East to mess with the Giants. The NFC East isn't overly powerful anyway. You got one offensive team, one defensive team, and then you got the Giants that are kind of trying to be both, and then you got the Eagles that are a mess. What do I think about Tua in Miami? I think that no Alabama quarterback has ever succeeded in the Nick Saban era, right? There's no Alabama quarterbacks that have ever succeeded, right? And from what I saw as the year went on last year, teams played Tua exactly right, and he was terrible down the stretch. So I think he's going to struggle. I don't think he's the answer. There's a couple things with it. He's left-handed, first of all. If you look back at left-handed quarterbacks, there's only a few good ones. Yeah, the NFL is built right-handed, and I know that sounds crazy, but like play calling, all that is built right-handed. It's not built left-handed, and I think that does matter. So, receivers are used to running that way toward a right-handed quarterback. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it that are just negative for Tua to win and be successful. And they're not overly talented down there. I mean, they got mediocre players. They did draft a great receiver, but they drafted him injured. So, I mean, who knows? He may not ever be back to what he was. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but if you think about all the left-handed quarterbacks. You can only think of 2, 3 that were perennially pretty good. The rest of the left-handed quarterbacks that have come were not great, and they never really lasted. There's been 3 that I can think of off the top of my head that were all pretty good, and they had great careers. But other than that, the other guys. So here's one of my answers. Okay, so Tua to me is very Tim Tebow, right? Tim Tebow kind of played his way into the first round, got drafted, but the NFL just didn't fit him, that quarterback, right? I think Tua is kind of the same way. The NFL just doesn't fully fit him, that quarterback. His team is in Alabama that's going to be more talented than every team he faces. His team is the Miami Dolphins that's going to be middle of the pack and face a bunch of teams that are better than them. So, I mean, Alabama, as far as quarterbacks go, it just doesn't translate very well because they're always so talented everywhere. So it's hard to evaluate how good those guys really are. And that's kind of the Mac Jones thing. I think Mac Jones, he looks like the most prototypical. But if you guys remember, AJ McCarron looked like Mac Jones too. And AJ McCarron never really has got his shot in the NFL. He can never win a starting job. So I don't know. I've never seen an Alabama quarterback succeed under Nick Saban. So let's see. Maybe we see the first two succeed. I mean, eventually it's got to happen, right? But I mean, if you look at the great quarterback producers that were in college, Pete Carroll produced a bunch of good quarterbacks that played in the NFL. That, some of them flopped, but they got put in bad situations was most of their flop. Another guy that seemed to just repeatedly produce good quarterbacks was Mark Richt. Mark Richt seemed to produce good quarterbacks. Now, not all of them caught on in the NFL, but they seemed to be pretty good. Whereas the Alabama teams are always so loaded, and they're always such good running football teams and such good defensive football teams that they just don't translate to the NFL very well. It's kind of the same thing with Ohio State. Ohio State's had a bunch of really good quarterbacks that didn't translate to the NFL. And I think it's just because their teams are always so good around them. So you get a very skewed look at them. That's why guys that come from like Texas Tech, like Mahomes, where you knew exactly what they were, or the one kind of outlier there is the Oklahoma teams, because Oklahoma seems to put a quarterback in the NFL every year lately that catches on as a starter. So, I mean, and I think they have another one waiting in the wings now, in the Spencer Rattler kid. So, I mean, but if you look at Oklahoma, okay, so I'm going to say Jalen Hurts is an Oklahoma guy. Steve Young was probably the best left-handed QB. Michael Vick was left-handed. He was really good. And Ryan Leaf. Okay, so when Ryan Leaf was playing college football, I lived in the inland Northwest. I lived in Idaho. He played in Washington State. So one of the things Ryan Leaf, he got overvalued, but his receivers were amazing. He had like 4 great receivers. Hello, Mike with Dice. And so he got really overvalued for one good year. And I mean, he showed when he got in the NFL, he showed. It wasn't no good. So, but the other left-handed quarterback, Kenny Stabler, was left-handed too, I believe, and he was pretty good. So here's a question, guys. Okay, so here's another question. Is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer? That's a question, okay? So is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer? All right, so I'm going to give you some Eli Manning statistics, all right? He has 2 Super Bowl rings, all right, against the GOAT, all right? Second thing is he's thrown for 5,000 yards in a season, all right? So there is precedence for a guy to win Super Bowls and not get in the Hall of Fame at quarterback. There's a guy that has won Super Bowls, like Eli Manning, very similar type of player where they didn't necessarily weren't the superstar on the team. Necessarily, the team was kind of built in spite of them. There's a guy that won Super Bowls and is not in the Hall of Fame. Now, he doesn't have the last name Manning, though, and that is Jim Plunkett. So Jim Plunkett is not in the Hall of Fame, and he has 2 Super Bowl rings, starting quarterback. So there is a precedence that says Eli Manning does not get in. Okay, so in my opinion, he will get in. 2 reasons, 2 rings, He beat Tom Brady in both games, and he's a Manning. I totally agree. I think the Manning name carries enough to get you a gold jacket, to get you a bust in Canton. And I think when that happens, Jim Plunkett should throw a fit because he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's the starting quarterback on 2 Super Bowl winning teams. You know, he should be in the Hall of Fame. So, but anyways, I'm not a Raiders fan, but I just think it's very. I don't know if Dan Fouts is in the Hall of Fame or not. Seems like he is. But I think there's a lot of guys that have made the Hall of Fame that don't have as much street credit as Jim Plunkett. And he's not there. So, I mean, I don't know. There's also, some of the other questions, out of all the same class, right, as Eli Manning, the same kind of group of quarterbacks that came through. Yeah, he did win out of the wild card. That's right. In fact, I think they had a losing record or something, or maybe they were 8-8 even, or maybe a 9-7. It was almost a 500 record. But so the guys that kind of were around Eli. Okay, so there was the big three right then. It was Eli, Rivers, Roethlisberger, right? But then there was also kind of Romo was in there and stuff. Are those guys Hall of Famers? Right? So 2 of them have rings, 2 of them don't. But I think you can argue that the 2 that don't have rings were better quarterbacks. So Romo and Rivers, I feel like you can argue that they were better quarterbacks, just better at the position, but they didn't win because their defenses and their teams weren't always as good. Now, Rivers obviously had some great teams around him. When the Chargers were dominating, their big issue was that they kept running into Pittsburgh teams and New England teams and stuff. And guys, I don't know if you guys remember, but Phillip Rivers was one Tom Brady interception away from a Super Bowl. Tom Brady throws a pick. And so Tom Brady throws an interception against San Diego in the AFC Championship game, or maybe it wasn't the AFC Championship game, but it was in the playoffs. And Troy Brown, receiver for the Patriots, runs over and strips the ball away from the guy. If I think it was Quentin Jammer, if he lays down, the game's over. San Diego advances. Tom Brady's legacy probably changes. Phillip Rivers probably goes on to win the Super Bowl because San Diego was the best team in the NFL that year. But Troy Brown comes and saves the day, strips that ball out. They finish the drive, score. The rest is history. So it wasn't like Rivers didn't have his chances. He did. They had some really good teams. Some really good teams. Back in the mid-2000s, they were good football teams. So, you're talking about LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates and Vincent Jackson when he was good. And then on defense, they had Sean Merriman. They were good. They were very, very good football teams. But so, out of those 4 quarterbacks, out of Romo, Rivers, Roethlisberger, and Eli, I feel like people have put Roethlisberger in already, but because of the 2 titles and he's led Pittsburgh. And that's another argument. Yeah, Flacco, he did. He won a Super Bowl and an MVP and all that. Flacco's resume is as good as any of them. Flacco's in like the top 15 in most categories. Everyone already says he's the best. The GOAT. He's the greatest. I'll be shocked if they win again. I don't think Tampa Bay was the best team in their division last year. I think that the Saints got beat up. I think the Saints were a better football team than them, but they got beat up. They got hurt as the year went on. They could never stay healthy, and it hurt them. And I think that the Buccaneers just kind of put it together at the right time. And even in the playoffs, I think that the Green Bay was better than them. But they took the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands in that game on the 7-yard line and stuff. And Tom Brady threw a Hail Mary at the end of the half that got caught for a touchdown. I mean, there's a lot of things that went right in that game for the Bucs to get past the Packers. So I don't think they were the best team in the NFC last year. They won, but I don't think they were the best team. I mean, it's like people forgot about the debacle in Chicago when he thought it was 4th down and it was already 4th down. So, I mean, it wasn't like they were, or when the Rams came in and destroyed them. I mean, it wasn't like they were just dominating people all year long. They got it together at the end of the year. I mean, the Chiefs were destroying them in the regular season game. That's funny. Max Kellerman's funny. But anyways, that's the kind of stuff. And so I'm going to go all in reverse here. Get back to the channel stuff, what's coming on in the future here. I'm going to figure out a contest or whatever. So I need people, and I'm going to put this out on some posts. If you want to play in our fantasy league, it's going to be a 10-team league. And 3 of the spots are already going to be taken. So it's really only 7 subscribers can play. And we're going to have a draft and all that. But if you want to play, I'm going to figure out who all wants to play. And then I'll figure out a way to pick. We'll do a contest. We'll do the spinning wheel or something like that. And see who gets in and who doesn't. I mean, and the thing is, guys, is anyone that plays fantasy football knows if you get past 10 teams, you start really watering down, and it kind of gets, your bench is terrible and stuff. So fantasy is a lot funner to play with 10 teams or less. So, but that's going to be a thing. So if you're interested, you can send me an email to wagermethis.com or wagermethis@gmail.com. If you go to my website, you can go down to the bottom and you can find some of my information down there, which is wagermethis.com. And also, guys, as the year goes on, I will be posting. Oh yeah, Harris, he was there last year. He's an Alabama boy. Alabama has taken over the league as running backs go. I mean, every year there's a new one. He's a beast, monster. So, guys, check out my website, and my football stuff's got to be on there every week, along with Square Pear stuff. All theirs. I'm gonna try to put the videos on there so you can just link to the videos as well. But one of the things is, guys, is on the show we're probably only going to pick the primetime games, and then you're going to have to go to the website to see the other ones. Otherwise, it's going to take forever. You know, the show would be 3 hours long. So we're probably only going to pick the primetime games. And remember, guys, we're going to be doing this on Wednesday, so things can change. And I'm going to keep people updated if we make different decisions, if we lay bets off, all those things. I'm going to keep people updated as much as I can, whether it's through posts, whether it's through direct contact with them. A bunch of you guys, you know, we text back and forth, a whole bunch of you guys. So, I mean, we can do that. Anyone that wants my phone number to text me, just go to my website, go all the way to the bottom, check it out, it's there. So if you want to text me directly. But anyways, that's the kind of stuff we're going to do. And me and these Square Pair guys, we're going to get it together and we're going to have a lot of fun. And also, I was thinking that, see you, Waylon? I was thinking that I would do something like this every week as well, where I find some statistics or I find a question to ask and kind of post it and then go live and talk about it and see what everyone thinks, and just as a fun thing. I mean, you know, it's all opinion stuff anyway, you know, it's nothing, you know, I'm not calling NFL plays or throwing NFL footballs or running footballs or tackling anybody, you know, I'm armchair quarterback in this thing. So, but anyways, it's a lot of fun. And like I said, we're going to be posting like our bankrolls and everything. So you're gonna see them, like the tally and did we win or lose and win and lost tallies and everything. So it's kind of competitive between me and those guys are all kind of competing, as well as we're obviously trying to, you know, give people good advice and get people to the window with winning tickets. That's definitely my biggest goal, is to put people in the winning chair. We don't want to lose. Losing sucks. But again, you can download the model I use to help me pick NFL games. It's right there on my website as well. You can just directly download it. But again, guys, if you don't mind, go to my website. It helps me out. Every time you just click on it, it helps me out because I obviously get paid. There's ads all over it, but it's not like YouTube ads where, you know, they're just on there. They're just on the page. So you can check it out. I have a whole bunch of craps blogs on there that I personally wrote, so you guys check all that out as well, if you don't mind. But I'm probably going to start a like a subscription on my website. It's not going to charge anything, but to where like you have to enter your information, like email or whatever, to probably look at my NFL stuff. And the reason being is because I want to be able to interact with you guys directly if something changes. If I decide that, hey, the quarterback went down or something like that, and I'm changing something, because, like I said, I want to give people winning advice, not losing advice, you know. And if something significant changes, I want to be able to relate that. So I probably am going to put that stuff on some kind of login credential. But again, that's if I can figure it out. I might not even be able to figure it out. But anyways, guys, I'm going to get out of here. It was really fun talking to you guys. And I had a blast. And I love your guys' opinions because, like I said, a lot of you guys have seen NFL I never saw, you know. And you guys have tons of knowledge. So I learn from you guys every day. Again, thank you for everything. And this is Wager Me This, and I'm out of here.